John 1, 1 through 5 says, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And he was in the beginning with God, and all things came into being through him. And apart from him, nothing came into being that has come into being. In him there was life, and the life was the light of men. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not comprehend it." Well, if you're joining us in reading through this 25-day reading plan, today's reading is John 1, 1 through 9, and I encourage you to read that passage. Well, it's popular today in some corners of Christianity to deny certain truths, but they deny the truths using words that seemingly agree with the truth. They might talk about the wonderful birth of Christ, but deny that it was a virgin birth. They might talk about the resurrection, but they do not mean a physical resurrection. They possibly mean a spiritual resurrection and not one that overcame death. And they deny that the world has been created. They might say that we are all God's creation, but what they mean is that we were all formed out of a blob of goo made up of amino acids. But John is very clear in his writing of the gospel. Now, in the other three gospels, the synoptics, so to speak, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, all present Christ as being recognized as God at the end of their stories. But it is John who recognizes that Christ is eternal and that he is God at the beginning of that gospel. In verse 2, it says that he was with God in the beginning. Verse 3 tells us that everything came into being through him. Verse 4 tells us that he has the life and he is the light of man. And verse 5 tells us that the light shines in the darkness, but the darkness did not comprehend it. Now, throughout church history, there have been men and women who have discounted John's claim that Jesus is God. They've discounted the Trinity and yet have attempted to create a worship that calls itself Christian. These men and women had a form of godliness, but they denied the power and they denied the root of what they should have been believing. There are those who say that Christ was created being equal to the highest of angels. There are those who say that Christ is a created being, but he is greater than any angel. And finally, there are others who say that Christ is a created being, and that we as beings can become just like him. Now, all of these are made to fool those who don't know the truth. It is Christ who is eternal. It is Christ who is part of the Godhead in the form of the Trinity. It is Christ who created. It is Christ who is fully God and fully man. And it is Christ who came to redeem us and to give us wisdom. It is Christ who came to cast away the darkness and bring us into full light.